let's listen to Mr. Val Ozigbo. Thank
you. Welcome to all of you. Thank God for technology. Anyway, so what I want to say to you today is probably what you know already. But at the risk of repeating this, what you already know, I think is something worthwhile to say as many times as possible. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing else more important than this conversation, nothing else. And I say this with every sense of seriousness. Indeed, nothing else. It is about our dignity as Black people in this world. It's about changing the story for good. Before I go into a few slides that I've put together, I'm going to share my screen shortly. I just want to let you know a few things, set the context before I go into that slide. Our story is disheartening. And when I use the word our, I'm referring to us in Africa, us in Nigeria, and all parts of Africa. I'm also referring to us in the diaspora, you guys who live in a much better environment, but the same story affects all of us. I'm also referring to us in the Caribbeans. Those are Africans who were taken away from us 400 years ago. Our stories are the same. And what is that story? It's a story of how we are being looked down upon, both by reasons that we have created ourselves, and some reasons that even with all our hard work, dint of commitment and all that, we're being addressed the way we don't want to be addressed. Because a lot of what happens around us is not necessarily who we are, but the way we have been painted. But we have also done enough to justify being painted as such. Today is not a day to go into the past. It's not a day to look at why are things this bad. It's not a day to ask and give blames to all the people that are to be blamed, because indeed all of us should take on the responsibility and look for nobody else to blame but ourselves, because that's the only time that a change can happen. For me, the most important mission for every single one of us, and particularly for me, is to see how we can change positively the narrative, the story of Black man in this world. And I've thought and introspected deeply about this. I've, looked around me and traveled to different continents and asking simple questions. Is this how we have been created? Is this how we've been, condemned to become for the rest of our lives? Can the story change? I can tell you all about the story. You know all the stories. Can't that story change? If we gather 1,000 Black people in this room and a white man walks in, I can tell you majority would think that white man is superior. Why? I am offended by this. I am totally uncomfortable with this status quo, and that status quo must change. This is the only reason I left a thriving career under no pressure, abandoned it because I wanted to tell my God, I tried my best in changing the story. And in what we're going to speak to today, I also want to commend the diaspora for what they've been doing, but to challenge us more, because there are a lot more we can do than what we have done in the past. I want us to honestly get into this conversation with everything in us, because there's a lot to do and we have little time, because this must change in our own generation. We can't keep on passing to our younger ones worse society than we have met. The story has to change. This is why I'm commending DADA for this conversation. There's a lot we can do, and I like to tie the knots and point us in the right direction. Hopefully, we can get inspired into positive action, and we can be proud of what our continent, our race can become in our own lifetime. For those who are worried about the hacking, I actually was expecting that when serious business, when good thing is about to happen, there's always that temptation. And I'm happy and I'm honored that the hackers are having sleepless nights looking for how to interfere. But guess what? If you're listening to us, I know you're not here anymore, you're a failure. Let's move on to our conversation. So I'm going to share my screen now. I have a couple of thoughts I would like to develop further, but I didn't have enough time to do so. So you pardon me. Please do confirm to me if you're seeing my screen.
Yes, we are.
All right. So again, thank you to Diaspora Action for Democracy in Africa. Some of the slides here I took from our earlier presentations we had with a couple of my friends, Tony J. Ikeme and Nexus C and Robert Mosel and a few. So if they're on this, they'll be very familiar with some of our conversation today because we've been on this. This is not our first time engaging in this. And I have to again thank the wider obedient world. They have made us proud. They have given us a reason to believe that we can actually take the right decision when we find a reason for such. This is our story. It's a story of bad governance. It's a story of selfishness and tribalism. A story of corruption, poverty, poor planning, poor institutions, lawlessness, incompetence, poor infrastructure, thuggery, rent-seeking, lack of vision, and more. You can add more to this. And this is a story that must change. I don't know if you have an idea how it can change. Please come on board. I have my writing notes to take notes and learn from others. But I have engaged quite a lot of people, and it's clear in my mind what needs to happen. The things that we need to do that can actually help us in changing the story. And that's what I want to share. And obviously, if you look at the topic of today, diaspora influence in the development of democracy in Africa, you will see why there are two important words here, diaspora and democracy. These two words are so important. We can't make progress without these two. And I bring this back to Nigeria because we're home to the highest number of Black people in the world. And these are the headlines. These are the headlines. And particularly those of you who are living outside of Nigerian shores. You get worried. You get worried. And I bring you home to my state, Anambra State. We were promised all manner of things, including Africa, Dubai, Taiwan. We're getting nothing near that. We have to shift the narrative. Evil thrive in our society because good people shy away from the fight. There are more reasons than this, but it's time for us to say enough is enough. Last year was an incredible, trajectory. We had reason to be hopeful once more about Nigeria. What Peter Obi led, the fight, the struggle was incredible, was inspiring. If there's anything that's given me, joy, excitement, that was accompanying him in most of the places to, pass on those messages. I engaged with a lot of you in the diaspora. We saw each other, we interacted while our leader was taking on that mantle. And guess what? From nothing, with a party that's relatively unknown, without any structure, he was able to win this election. Forget the fact that, he wasn't declared winner. The fact that we could get to where we got to, and majority of Nigerians from all walks of life, from all sectors, from all ethnic background, from all religion, came together to push this man into where we got to. It just took a few people who ganged up to say, no, we allowed it. We allowed it. We haven't said enough is enough, because if we had said that, that wouldn't have happened. Or if they tried it, there would have been consequences. Today, there are no consequences. People have moved on. And I'm hoping that such will never happen again in our lifetime. Such will never happen again. This is now about time we actually get to enough is enough. There are two primary choices in life: to accept conditions as they exist, or accept the responsibility for changing them. Stop blaming others. There are some people that will tell you, oh, it was Peter B that caused it. He didn't tell us to go to the streets. Did he have to? Did he really have to? You don't know what is right? We were simply selfish. Nobody wanted to be hurt. Some have even told me, why should I be hurt? You should be the one to lead the fight. Let them be hurt first. Anyway, our selfishness hasn't led us. This blame goes to every single one of you, myself included. What are we going to do next going forward? I want us to understand that if we really want to solve any problem, the best and the first thing to do is go into the root cause. We've got to go back and say to ourselves, how did all this happen? And what do we need to do to orchestrate that change? The time has come for the global Africa to stop whining and start strategizing. And the strategy, that's what we're going to do now. We've got to take charge. What is global Africa? Global Africa means those of us in Africa, those of you in diaspora, and those of us in the Caribbean. That's what we mean by global Africa. It's time for us to come together. And this is the important slide I wanted to pay attention to. I have said this over, and I'm proud to say it anytime, that if the story of Black man can change in this world, God made Nigeria special. We are the places it has to start for different reasons. And I can go on and on and on. We are the largest. We are the most endowed. We are the most talented. God made us specially, and we're the most diverse. If we don't change Nigeria, every other thing we do in the other parts of the world, we're wasting our time. This is where it has to happen for it to be catalytic, so that that's when it spreads, boom, to other places. People get inspired. If you think about what's even happening in the Western world, there's just a few countries doing this and carrying other people along. Nigeria is the country that will do so. And if you come to Nigeria, they call us the Southeast, but some of us call ourselves the Jews of Africa. Yes, you hear me right. We don't have to even descend from the Israelites. The fact that our story is similar to the Jews, and I will talk about those experiences. I feel that the Gemba is where it happens and where it should happen. The fact that the Southeasterners, the Igbos, are spread in different parts of Nigeria and Africa and in the world more than any other tribe is a reason why we are special. The fact that if you come to, mention the sectors, literary world, entertainment, politics, who led independence, everything, who has the money. There's a reason why God has made us. I feel that we in the Southeast should assume responsibility and know that the rest of the world of Black people are expecting a change. We've got to set the standard, and then it begins to explode. What do we need to do? There are three most important things that we've got to get right. Political leadership, particularly the recruitment process. We have to set a standard where people who get onto leadership come out of a carefully designed process, not by accident, not error. I feel that the problem we've had is that sometimes we can get a good person to take one step forward, and then we'll have a wrong person take multiple steps back, because that good person didn't get there by design. He just stumbled and got there by accident. Even P2B's almost emergence wasn't by design. A Nigerian system can't throw up a person like P2B is an exception, but that should be the norm. We should have a P2B everywhere, but that's not the case. We should have Alex Oti everywhere, but that's not the case. But if we design it well, it will be the case consistently. And until we do it like that, forget it. You get it right. And I like what they were telling Alex Oti today, just a few minutes ago. Your succession plan is important, because who succeeds you? They can mess up all the things we're talking about Abia State. Same thing happened in Anambra State. Anambra was a place I called home. I was so excited to be called on Anambra. But today, it is the other states are Malaya too. They give example with other states. Unfortunate. What I'm saying to you is that this is the game bar. This is where it must start, political leadership. And I will go into what the diaspora had, to contribute in achieving the right recruitment process. Citizenship is another. How do we become the type of citizens that Nigeria deserves? Nigeria deserves active, positive-minded citizens, not some docile people who allow all forms of criminality to be perpetrated, and they do nothing. Are you the type of citizen that will wait for things to happen or even wonder what has happened? Or do you want to be a citizen that will make things happen? Please be that citizen that makes things happen. Are you a selfish citizen that thinks only about himself, or a tribal bigot that thinks about just his barack or his friends, his church, his whatever? Are you somebody who is enlightened, who has what we call enlightened self-interest, who pursues common good? What is good for the goose is good for the gander. That's what we are begging for. So be an active citizen who wishes for common good. How do we achieve this? There are many ways to achieve this. This type of conversation helps to inspire people. Also getting the right leadership can help to inspire the right citizenship. Also through enforcement, when there are consequences, when people understand that if you obey traffic light, there's a consequence. If you steal, there's a consequence. If you rape, there's a consequence. If you kill, there's a consequence. If you steal, until we get to that level, my brother, my sister were in trouble. This story, Biko Munnem, this story has to change. We need everybody on hand, on deck. The next is the culture. I talk about culture all the time. When I say culture, people don't even understand it. The thing is just Omenana, the one with our great-grandfather. No, that's actually the one I want us to change, particularly if they're expired. That's the one I want us to keep if they're still relevant. It's about challenging the status quo. That's the culture I'm looking for. A culture that challenges the status quo. That's what I call Kaizen culture, a change for the better. That every single thing must be interrogated. If you tell me this is how they used to do it, I'm going to ask you, is that a better way of doing it? Think through it. I have given this lecture at least in 100 places where I say to people, don't tell me about how our great-grandfather used to do it. If I go to your village, if I come to my village, and everything is still the same way, I am in trouble. I am upset about that village. It cannot be. How come we saw how people were throwing kites? Eventually it became aeroplane. They were challenging the status quo. Same thing with sheep, same thing. And guess what? And all of this is about when you go into in a classroom environment, education environment, we call it research and development. Go into a corporate world, call it efficiency models. Kaizen culture, a change for the better is a change that challenges every status quo. It's a culture that challenges every status quo. When that bomb hit on Japan, the Hiroshima bomb, it was this type of culture that took Japan to become second largest in the world in terms of GDP. Within 10 years, they don't have two heads. We can replicate the same thing. And you don't need political leadership to inspire this. With the right leadership, it can move faster. But we can on our own decide, you know what? We must challenge every status quo. Don't go to a meeting and say the younger one should sit down when the elders are talking. It doesn't make sense to me. Meanwhile, the younger one may be the CEO of a global corporation. The elders come there to work for him. Let's challenge status quo. I am not asking for us not to respect our elders, but we must hear from everybody. Don't tell me the women are to be relegated because in the golden days, who are women? Don't tell me that. We've got to fire on all cylinders. Women their voice must be heard. We must challenge every status quo. We bring this upon us. Do you know what we do? We celebrate status quo instead of challenge status quo. That's why anything we do, we keep celebrating that, even when it's expired. These are the things we must do. If we bring these three things together, oh my God. I am speaking from experience. I'm actually a global Kaizen champion. I have, hired specialists who trained my team, and we practicalized this, and we saw what this did to us in our industry, in the hospitality. And that's why I said, wow, can you imagine if we bring this to political governance? And I spoke to my Indian team, and they told me what they were already doing with the Prime Minister of India, in the presidency office. If I get into office, I will Kaizen everywhere so we can cut waste and improve efficiency. Which sectors are the most important? There are many sectors that are important. I'm not, referring to, of course, we know the importance of education and health and all that. These are the things we must do to stabilize, even create a sense of humane society. But the sectors that can help us to catch up with the rest of the world are technology and entertainment. Because if I tell you that Nigeria or Africa will compete with Airbus and GM in building an engine of aeroplane, we are far behind. It will take us years and years to catch up. But with technology, it's a leveler. We can start today and be the best in AI. We can create our own NVIDIA tomorrow if we do the right thing. Entertainment is something we're already taking on the world without even the support of government. But if we do the right thing, these two in particular, we will supersede. They will be coming to learn from us. We have the DNA, we have the resources, we have everything. Who to do this? I put here Global Africa. It is diaspora that will do it. Not only diaspora, but they will lead it, because guess what? Every other place anything has ever happened was led by the diaspora. So we haven't recognized the potency, the efficacy of diaspora, and we have to this time. Mention any country, I'll tell you it's the diaspora. Mention Japan, what's the diaspora? Is it India? Is it diaspora? Is it Malaysia? Is it Singapore? Is it UAE? We're talking about the Jews. I will go into some of this conversation. The diaspora hold the key. And how would diaspora do this? Through their resources, through technology, through governance. They have to be part of governance because they have seen it all. They are more likely to be purposeful than those who are hungry. Those who are hungry, they justify being transactional. They justify their selfishness because there's no hope for them. But you guys, some of you have seen it all and say, you know what? I'm ashamed of my home. I want to go home and do something. So yeah, there's that natural setting. That's your default position. Even though some diasporans even are worse than the transactional locals. With due respect, I feel that this summarizes all our conversation. Everything I said to you is maybe to emphasize, to embellish points I've made here. If you have nothing else to hear from me today, this is it. I went to Bahamas a few days ago. Some of you may have seen my posts. And in Bahamas, it was the annual meetings, the 31st annual meetings of our President Bank. President Bank is Africa Export-Import Bank. It's a $34 billion asset base company. It's owned by the continents of Africa. I am impressed with what I saw, what I've been seeing. If you have an idea what Afrexim Bank has done in recent years, you will commend them. I have passed through 4 earlier CEOs, presidents, but Professor Okeo Rama, who also happens to come from Anambra State, has been an impactful chairman and president. At that AGM, he made something home for me. The reason I, Valentine Ozigbo, went into politics was to contribute my quota towards changing the story of Black man in the world. I did my own, permutations, introspection, reflections, and I thought that we are not created unequal. We are, in fact, blessed more than the rest of the world because there's nothing lacking other than these 3 things I've mentioned: political leadership, active citizenship, and the right culture. Nothing else. And when people talk about all this other corruption, these are manifestations of bad leadership. If you get this thing I'm talking about right, where we get the right leadership consistently, it is the masses that will put the leader, and the leader will go back and be accountable to the masses. And when he doesn't, the masses will react. When we have that check and balance, people will sit up. And when people sit up, active citizenship will take roots. And when we have the right culture, we'll get it right. So I felt that there's no need pontificating. I feel like this can happen anywhere, but the most impactful will be Nigeria. I feel any other tribe in Nigeria can lead it, but the one that will make the most catalytic is the Igbos. And I feel Anambra is the headship of the Igbos. So why can't we go into Anambra actually now set a standard of what governance should be? That's how I abandoned Transcorp to go into politics. And people thought I was silly, I was a fool. But I thank God for my experience so far. Why am I talking about this? This is the reason. I said to myself, I honestly don't have to even change the story, but I want to do my best. I want to be able to say to God, I tried my best. Even if the people that I'm trying to do this for don't even recognize, no problem. But I don't want to die and say I haven't done my best. That's all. That's why I'm in politics. Nothing else. It's not about fame. It's not about money. It's not about I'm ready to be poor. I am telling you wholeheartedly, I feel our story must change. So here am I, and here was I, in Bahamas. Everybody was repeating the same story. Dignity of Africa, global Africa. From the elderly ones, the likes of President Obasanjo, P.J. Patterson, the former Jamaican president, the younger ones, the business, from the Dangotes of this world, all there, to the entertainers. I'm not sure Serena Williams eventually came because I think I missed her own show, but Wyclef was there, Genevieve Naji, and of course, likes of Flavor came to perform and entertain us, but all of these ecosystems there speaking the same thing. But they were looking at it from a particular point of view, how the whole of Africa, from those in Africa to the Caribbean to the diaspora, can begin to align and trade among ourselves, create the ecosystem. Fantastic. But I sent an email to President Orama, and I said to him, my dear brother, you made me proud. You're in fact a game changer. That's what I called him in the email. And I said to him, everything you're saying here made a lot of sense. In fact, this is some reason I went into politics. However, there's a missing link. There's a very important missing link. For you to trade, you must be competitive. Nigeria can't sell to South Africa if we can't produce competitively. If by the time we produce and our cost of production is higher than South Africa buying from the US, they will continue to buy from the US. So the trade we are pushing, IATF, intra-Africa trade fair, all of this, it won't happen at that critical mass until we are competitive. How do we become competitive? It won't happen until we have the right leadership who will use Nigerian and African money to work for Africa. As long as all we have are transactional people who are there to enrich themselves, who are mess things up, who get in there in the wrong manner, create a lawless environment where there's no law and order, so we can't even enter into any contract because we can't trust that contract. In Nigeria, if you have more money, you buy your judgment. If that's your story, it's not going to change. What are you talking about? So why are you focusing on the symptoms? Go to the root cause. I said to you, leave that your trade though, and go into what's going on. This is the issue here. And guess what? You can solve it. It's not about how do we recruit people into leadership? How do you solve it? I can say to him in my email, you can solve it. Guess what? Let's use technology to retire the old order. Technology will retire the old order because they won't even know what it is. They can't even use their phone. How much more understand blockchain technology? So let's lead them on to that side so that they just get out of our way, please. I have respect for elders, so before people say I'm not respecting elders, but if they are the cause of our issues, we can't, I'm even an elder now, I'm helping to inspire the younger one, we will get out of the way. What am I saying to you all? If we can entrench electronic voting, e-voting, not e-collation, not what we even have now, Beaver's story in Nigeria, e-voting, where you can just be at in your home. Within an hour, the country can do their voting and using a blockchain technology. So it can be hacked, it can be, the authenticity will be there. And it's also trackable. We can always go back and validate. And that can be divided, that can be solved. If we can do this, my brother, that's when people like you and me can boldly show up and say, we want to lead. It's no longer about who has stolen more money. They told me in Anambra election, oh, Val is the best candidate, has the right character, is humble, is this and that, but he doesn't have as much money as the incumbent. Do I have to have enough money? Do I have to steal? What are you talking about? Where's your own money? Bahamas was such an experience, and I was so happy when I got a response from Professor Rama saying to me, you know what? I will be copying African Union in this your message, so we can take this conversation further. This is the email. I won't bore you with it, but I poured my heart here and he understood it. So if we go back to those three things of diaspora, I'll go back to it. I put here resources, technology, and governance. Let's talk about resources today. I've highlighted what technology can do already. Governance is just being part of it. Don't just help somebody get in there. Calm down. You have done it right. If I want to solve health problems in Nigeria, why do I need to look far when I have thousands of professional doctors and pharmacists and all that in the US? You come home, we'll do it together. So you have to be part of that governance. But let's talk about resources today and learn from others. This is the kind of figure we see in terms of remittances. You hear $20 billion. That's what we remit. This is Nigeria alone. I'm not talking about Africa now. Imagine what the number is for Africa. $20 billion. But what are these money for? For feeding, for consumption. Nothing productive, because if you put the money in productive activity, it will disappear because we're not competitive, because we're bought by leadership. Just take 1% of this money and channel it towards getting the right people and watch magic happen. It's about strategy. Here is India, and here is Nigeria, for instance. Our remittances are increasing for consumption, and foreign direct investment is declining. Whereas we do 3.7 billion in FDI, India does 71 billion. Whereas we do 20 billion in remittances, India does 111 billion. I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from this. This is the India story. In the beginning, in the 50s, look at where they were. Indians were low-level engineers, stereotyped as beggars and snake charmers. Those people that will shoot football and the football will disappear. And today, we're talking about talent, Indian that's leading the space. Entrepreneurial path that follow has met things. Most of the CEOs in the global world, in the tech world, are Indians. 7% of all Silicon Valley startups between 1980 and 98 were founded by Indian-born entrepreneurs. 25% of all startups in the USA are by immigrants, Indian 6.5%. 52% of startups in the Silicon Valley were by immigrants, Indian 40%. This is what they achieved. Yet, they account for less than 1% of immigrants in the US. Why can't we replicate this? And with this, why can't we go home and fix our home? Bangalore, similar. From, look at World Tech Hub, Silicon Valley, rely on significantly on Bangalore for outsourcing. And today, the story is different. That the world's third highest startup ecosystem. One of the things I say I must do with Anambra, it has to be a tech hub. I would like Anambra to compete with Bangalore, for instance, or the entire Southeast to compete with Bangalore through collaborations. The Jews I am most proud of. In fact, I read the story, the speech by the UN ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, where, oh my God, I think I need to pass on this. Everybody on this call should read that message, that speech. If you understand where they have come from, 2 million people, 6 million people murdered, babies slaughtered, nowhere to hide. Jews immigrated to the USA from Ukraine, Western Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Belarus, Romania. They arrived US on crowded boats. But if you now listen here, oh my God, in fact, I think I had that open on my phone. I'll read part of the message. It's incredible. It's incredible. They are 0.01% of the entire world in terms of population. But They make up 32% of the Nobel laureate winners. That's India. Yes, you may say God created them special. After all, Virgin Mary is a Jew. Jesus Christ, every people, the reason why even Christians, and we can say even a lot more. There's a particular line I just want to read out. Drip irrigation, seawater desalination, Intel processors, and Centrino, and Core Duo platforms, the world's smallest DNA computer, the world's first USB flash drive, nano wire and camera peel, multiple sclerosis drug, and exoskeleton, Google Glass for the blind and baby breathing monitor, the radar that can see through walls, the holographic reality artificial intelligence synthesizer, hundreds of other wonderful things. I can tell you that the Jews changed the story of white men, and the Jews of Africa must change the story of black men. And I want you to challenge me. I want you to disagree with me and let other tribes in Nigeria actually say, no, it's us. Let's compete on things like that, not on how many people have been murdered and those nonsense that we talk about. Where's your president coming from? And when one gets in there, he will only become nepotic and people around you. We're in trouble, but we have to change it. See, within this period of Ukraine, not Ukraine, the insecurity in Israel, they've remitted over $2 billion home. So they actually drive development both in the diaspora and in the homeland. That's what we need to do. I want our diasporans to understand that we are waiting for you. And when you talk about Jews and Indians and Chinese and Japanese and all of this, there's even a story you can learn from in Africa. Somalia, just 15 million people, 1.2%, but 7 out of 12 African caucus members are Somalians, 60% of African caucus. So it's not the size of dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. What are the lessons? Individually, we are one drop. Together, we are an ocean. A single leaf, walking alone, provides no shade. Now listen to this African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I was shocked with the wisdom of President Obasanjo in Bahamas. He added, we don't want to just go fast or go together or go far. We must go fast and far. So we must go alone together. Wow, the whole place erupted. And he explained this further. And that was part of my email to President Obama. You can't just keep going together when you haven't done what you have to do alone at home. So for us to move, the constant pass must get their acts together. If you use the word, you have criminals at home guarding your home, of course, before you even get home, your home is lost. So you have to tidy your home and then everybody together. Then we can now move fast and far. That's a lesson we have to learn tonight. We need to take every step necessary to get our homes right. When you wake up in the morning, this is the right time, but don't wake up at night because we have to get things done. We need to work together. We need, leadership. Selection process has to be right. We have to embed this strategy in a long-term manner, be resilient, and that's where has a lot to do. And there's something we're trying to practicalize here. My foundation and Nigeria We Can went into partnership to actually begin to experiment this. at a level of private sector until we get into office and begin to take it to a global level. We wanted to demonstrate what is possible. So we don't just keep talking. See, when I talk about resources, diaspora, what I need you to understand is once we identify the right person, the person with the right character, and we've got to come together to support and make sure such a person gets into office and make it consistently in that manner. Because if you wait until one person has all the money to get in there, or mingles with some wrong godfathers to get in there, you will see a good man turn bad. You don't want that. That's why in the US, for instance, even as a sitting president, Biden is receiving $50, $100. In different parts of the Western world, same thing. Trump, with all the billion that he has, people are still contributing money. And not just the $1 million contribution, is a $100 contribution. Just Starbucks coffee, 2 cups. If you're able to do this on a monthly basis, for instance, watch and see what will happen. Do you know, just getting 50,000 Nigerians in the diaspora to give $100, $200 in an election period, that's $10 million. If you support any candidate, he will emerge and he won't even feel you've supported. It's a culture we've got to imbibe. We didn't do it right in last year. Nigeria We Can experimented this, did a lot, but we didn't get the crescendo the way we would have liked. But we can't afford to miss that opportunity anymore. So let's start off now. My foundation has been doing a lot of things. So why don't we then get our diaspora to team up and explode those things and show it's possible? So even when we get into electioneering season, we have a ready mantra, game plan to run an election. And when people say, oh, VAR doesn't have money, he's looking for money. VAR was actually meant to fund his entire activities alone because VAR is going there to enrich himself. No, that's a wrong way to act and reason. We've got to change the narratives about changing the status quo. How we fund elections in the future must change, and diaspora has to lead it. You understand this already. That's what you're doing already. You did it for Obama and many people. So why can't we do it at home? Little contributions. When we all come together and put somebody there, the person is more obligated to be accountable to you because you will say, I put you there. So resources, using the right technology, and then being part of governance are the ways diaspora can help to cement what we're talking about. About my foundation, we've done a lot of things, both in the church, through the unusual praise. We've done a lot of talent hunts, business plan, competition, seeding money, providing mentorship. And on the tech world, we've trained a couple of engineers working with Decagon and other partners. We've also just yesterday, 2 days ago on Friday, we conducted another edition of Talent Hunt. This was for Anambra students, and spent over 6 million in prizes alone. Not talk about the preparation, logistics, and all that, and empowered people again in the seeding money for businesses, for music, dance, drama, and those winners that are exceptional. We will also handhold them because I'm an investor in the entertainment world. I'm one of the owners of Merryman movie, for instance. So what we try to do, but there's another movie about to be shot, I try to get some of the people to be part of those movies. So that's how to get them to start up. And when they start doing well, they have a story to tell. So these are the things I do. Tech and entertainment, I'm not waiting until I get into office. These are the things I have been part of and I will keep doing. And by the time we get into office, you will see magic begin to happen. Then, Dan mentioned freestyle football. I don't want to bore you with that. We have many contents to share. This year alone, in September, there'll be another Nigerian championship in Lagos. Also, by October, there'll be an African championship in Algeria. And, we do this because we want to provide credible alternative for our younger people instead of taking to crime. And there are many things now Nigeria We Can has been a fantastic partner. They built first of its kind non-profit non-partisan 527 company founded in August. They did a lot for Peter Ob's election, and we've gone into this partnership, and there's a lot being done as we speak. In fact, the goal is to convert the Nigerian diaspora's economic power to political might by ensuring that Nigerians in the diaspora have a strong voice in selecting its leaders. So let's create a platform where we can demonstrate what we're talking about. Because I can speak all this grammar, and then I end up this conversation, and everybody goes back to their, and then life, nothing changes. That's not what we want. Talk and do, that's where we are. You can be part of it now, even in this meeting. And it provides what we call radical transparency. As you're doing it, you're seeing the outcome. And because it is US regulated, they actually show everything on a quarterly basis, who has donated what. And even my foundation assessing it, we have to provide invoice, let them know this is what this money is being used for. So the tracking is there, and everybody, you can always log on the website and see who has donated what. Nothing can be better than that. In the past dispensation, people will tell you, I gave money to this person, something happened. No, all that is gone. And you can use any card, any instrument. In fact, by just, scanning a barcode or texting to a particular, for instance, a VCO to a particular number, you can get into business. And within a few seconds, you've supported. And you can set it up on a monthly basis, $25, $100, like that. So this is what we experiment with. Last meeting we had, you can see here, assuming we're targeting $10,000 this night, you can actually just scan this or text this, and you'll be seeing who is donating what, scrolling down the screen. Daniel Lumba will share his screen after I'm done with this conversation. And we have to strategize for the future. And I have a couple of people who are supporting this activity. Their names are here. You can take the numbers, reach out to them. I want to say this. I am passionate. I am desperate about changing the story of Black man in the world. I obviously am a little part of what is needed, a very insignificant part. But without, saying too much, I want to say that whatever I have to contribute, take it to the bank, and that's what I'm here to contribute. By the time you do your own part, every other person does their own part, we will form a critical mass, and that chain becomes much more achievable, much more, what we call low-hanging. So my dear brothers, my dear sisters, there's a lot of work for us to do. I honestly wish I was better prepared, but I hope the little story I've shared will inspire you into greater action. And as you do so, may God bless Black people in Africa. May God bless Nigeria. May God bless my dear Southeasterners and other parts of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine Ozigbo. We really do appreciate your insight into how diasporans can influence the political question in Africa. So I'd like to thank you again, and I will please solicit our audience that if you'd like to ask any question to Mr. Valentine Ozigbo, to please raise your hand, and we have Dr. Cheta here, who is going to be moderating that section. Cheta, if you want to take over, please, I will appreciate that. But before that, I want to say, Mr. Val, you've hit all the nails on the head when it comes to African problem. I would like to quote an old lady I ran into in the United States. She was about 87, Miss T, I call her. We came across each other by chance. Then we became friends. I'll go to her house, I will sit down with her and we'll talk about Africa and African Americans. Just not to bore people, there was one thing she said that struck me. And I've been thinking about it and meditating about it. That she's waiting for the day she's going to die. And she wants to go to God and ask God, what plan did you have for the Black man when you created him? And that thing got stuck in my head since over 15 years. You know, you said we like to blame others for our own problems. Yes, I know others are part of our problems, but like you said, we can change the narrative. But what I tell my African brothers and sisters is this: if you are not able to change yourself, you can never change any other person. It's just very impossible. I would like to stop there and hand over to Cheta to please moderate the question and answers. Thank you, Cheta.